Welcome to No Compromises, a peek into the mind of two old web devs who have seen some things. This is Joel.
And this is Aaron.
Hey, Aaron, I saw a really cool package on Laravel News, and I want to install it in our app. Do you have any objections?
Yeah, what's it for? What
Oh,
kind of quality of code is it? Why are you installing packages? Why are you asking me this?
oh, I see we got cranky Aaron today. I love it. This is good. This is good. No, I'm teasing a little bit of a setup because the things do show up and sometimes they show up and we weren't looking for it, but it's like, oh, that could actually be useful. I didn't know that thing existed. Or sometimes you go search for a package like, I need to integrate with this thing, or I need to do something that's non-trivial. Like maybe somebody has done some of the work for me. But there's that moment where maybe you find one or multiple packages and you're trying to get just like a quick sense, is this thing any good? Like, do I want to bring this into my project?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll admit, like what I look at a lot of times is the README. But today we're going to talk about somewhere else we look, and I know this is more up your alley because we've talked about this before, and that is the tests folder. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Am I? Yeah.
Yeah. I would say the number one reason why I wouldn't want to use someone's package is like example test in a PHP unit folder or something like that. That's only lower than someone with no tests. So if you have no tests, that's horrible. That's fine. Versus if you have a folder called tests and it just has example tests in it, that's even worse.
Boy.
So
that's actually worse to you is that
Yeah.
they left the default example test in there and didn't even have the cleanliness to get rid of the tests folder and own their decision to not have tests.
As silly as it sounds, it's also a cognitive load on my brain that if there's a test folder, I assume there's tests in it.
So maybe there's even a little bit of excitement, like, oh, let's see what tests they have. And then you're disappointed and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that would be like when you're first discovering it. But just in general, like if I have a folder called, support for PHP 8.5 and inside of there's nothing, then I'm really upset with like, what are you doing? Yeah. Delete things that don't matter, So I guess that's kind of where I look at that and say, if there's a folder, for tests, let's take a look at it. If there's no folder for tests, first of all, I'm probably not going to use the package if I can help it anyway.
Okay. So it's kind of a hard line then. You're like, this is literally a make or break decision. Doesn't matter. Because here's some other things people look at. How many GitHub stars does it have? How many packages it installs? Like you're saying it could have good signals in other areas, but if this tests folder is lacking, or even worse, has just the one test in it, it's just a deal breaker for you.
Yeah, it's a collaborative thing. So let's just say it's a perfect package. It has 100 million downloads. Everyone says it's perfect and it has no tests. Then maybe all of those things have sort of pushed it above the level where I can say, well, I don't know why we're using this package, but it's such a small bit of code that I can see it. I understand that there's no tests. Everyone is using it. It works fine. I'll do that. But in general, the reason you're getting a package is because it has more code in it than you're familiar with.
Yeah.
And so for me, looking at the tests does two things. One, it shows that the person who made the code was thinking about all the different scenarios that I might use this code, not just for their one scenario. Usually that means that they're like checking the edge cases and going through them. And then the second thing is it's a form of documentation, because I don't know about you, but you said you checked that README. How often is the README actually really up to date with what's actually going on?
Yeah, maybe it's not even being up to date, but like you can't address every possible use case for a package in a README. Like it'd be pretty long, right? So, but the tests are more thorough. And so maybe there is like one particular use case you care about, and it's not covered in detail in the docs. And you could look at the tests and like hopefully see, like, does it do the thing I need, or does it do it in the way that I want it to do it?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So it's mostly a hard line, but I hear a little bit of like, and I'm with you. Like if something's got 100 million downloads and it doesn't have tests, like, I don't know if I've ever seen that, first of all. But second of all, maybe it's just a single class, or like it's bringing something into Laravel that you could just copy, right? And not even have to install the package. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think so. That's kind of why I would say that they pile up, so you can check the README, you can check the GitHub, the stars. Another thing is looking at their issues. If it's a package that's up to date or something, have the issues been being opened and addressed? If it's something I
Yeah.
need to dwell on a lot, I might actually look at some of the closed issues to see how they were resolved.
Okay.
Because there could be a situation where it's like, hey, this is a perfect project, but the maintainer isn't wanting to expand it. That's their own prerogative,
Sure.
But I need a couple expansions. Well, it doesn't look like they're willing to do that. Do I want to fork it? Do I want to find a different solution?
Yeah.
You can kind of pick those things up from looking at the issues and wikiing conversations and stuff too around the package ecosystem.
Yeah, that's important context as well. Just it kind of all weighs in on the general health of the package, and I even think too, like when it comes to Laravel version updates, I will sometimes look at the history and see like, hey, were they in front of it, or did they have it like the week Laravel came out, or is it like 3 months later and people are like, hey, can you bump this? Not that we're like installing new Laravel versions day one, but it's sort of a litmus test to me, like just how on top of it is the package maintainer.
Yeah, so I would say full circle here. There's a lot of things that kind of build up whether I'm going to use this package or not. But the
Yeah.
number one for me is their tests in there. And I know, we talk a lot about testing. Maybe that sounds self-serving, but it is really, to me, it is the equivalent of your code. Your source code and your tests are the same thing in this project to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And a package is kind of unique because there's a level of trust that you're extending by installing that package. Like with Laravel, we see its tests, and like when we're writing application tests, we kind of have this boundary in mind. Like, well, I don't need to test that the queue works the way Laravel does internally. Like Laravel's got that test, and it's the same thing with the package. You don't want to have to feel the need to like dig in and internally test the workings of the package. One other question, maybe a final question. Do you ever actually run the tests, or is it just like I want to see that they're there and I want to look at them, or do you exercise them yourself, like maybe even before updating to a new version of that package or anything like that?
Nope.
Okay, that's fine. I don't either. It's not a judgment
Yeah.
thing. I was just kind of curious.
No, it sounds like a perfect thing to do. You're going to get a brand new package, maybe check it out, run a test, but I don't do it. I just look at them,
Yeah.
and but that's a good idea. That's why the
Well,
delay there. Maybe I should.
yeah, and to be fair, like maybe with like this would be guarding against like does it run on my machine or in my specific circumstance, but they probably have like CI and you can see, oh yeah, it passed, the tests pass on 8.3 and 8.4, so it's there's a little bit of trust there, like are they actually running these tests, but just seeing them, that's sort of the first pass. But yeah, I don't run them myself either. I mean, I would only run them if I'm contributing to the package to make sure my PR isn't going to break their pipeline or whatever.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can tell it. I've been trying to keep it out of my voice, but I'm kind of sick today, got a cold or something,
You got that radio voice today, man. You got to do more of this.
I just don't like this because I'm sick and I just don't want to do anything. And I told one of my friends and she says, oh, so you got man flu.
As opposed
like,
to,
I don't know. And I just said, I don't agree with that. And when she describes it, it's actually very accurate. And it makes me very angry with myself. And I can't seem to change anything about it, which is this concept of like when guys get a sickness, it's always like far worse for them. And like,
oh yeah,
a woman might have a cold and they're fine, but guy has a cold and he's like, I got to stay in bed. I want to do that so bad right now is go back in bed.
Well, now that the podcast is over, Aaron, go back to bed.
When you work with us, we don't just look at the tests, we actually run them too.
Yes, that part is definitely clear. If you'd like to work with us, head over to masteringlaravel.io, and we have an option to get in contact with us and see if we have availability.